But anyway, did that. Kevin provided the dowels, the good birch dowels, not poplar. And so I've made a few, top blanks before. So anyway, there's over 200 in here. And I didn't have time to finish them before the meeting. So anyway, these are for the, I guess this is like a, a derivative in financial terms, or a precursor in manufacturing terms, because the value of these will be determined by who finishes them. So anyway, 200 of these. That's my contribution for the challenge this month, and I'm sticking to it. Next. Thanks.
I didn't bring all the pieces up here.
Appreciate that.
Just enough that you can get a
Have we got a
look at it.
bowl we're throwing them in or something? Okay, good.
Really needs a hard surface for the bowling pins. But that I decided to do this weekend, just kind of a spur of the moment deal. So this is, spun to create a tic-tac-toe game, and 2 different color pieces. So your X and Y are actually going to be little figures. And it just so happened, because there's 9 spaces, made 5 of each. It's like, well, that's like bowling ball pins, so I made the other one too. It's like, oh, I like the idea of doing bowling ball pins. So, and there's a whole thing behind the dimensions of bowling ball pins if you're interested. So.
I did
Like your hand.
8 bottle stoppers. That's per Sean. They're not wine bottle stoppers, because you never need a stopper for a wine bottle. So they're vinegar bottles. They're stoppers of 4 different woods. A couple of them I came back from Hawaii this spring with. So there's 8 of these for the Irish Fest.
Packaged and ready for sale.
Well, it was said bring in toys or something to sell, so who doesn't want some more candle holders, right?
And this is the puzzle I made last month, since I didn't have a chance to make anything else, so that's
They look
my
like
donation.
pieces by Jans Kiestgaard. They do. The Scandinavian who, real famous for making that kind.
Well, Larry Dice couldn't stay for this part of it, so he asked me to present his game piece. Are there any questions? He wanted me to really go into it, but do you have any questions about that? I mean, they're both really pretty similar. This was mine. Mine is similar except in 2 respects from the rest of the others and Larry's. Mine doesn't work too well. And the other thing is that's a little bit different about it. I don't know, are there any of you who are familiar with the contemporary artist Christo? You know about his work? You remember when he was here in Kansas City back in 1978, 40 years ago? Well, I was with Parks and Recreation at that time, and anyway, when he wrapped up the sidewalks over in Luce Park, and he had several miles of this kind of material stretched across the sidewalks and so forth, and it was really pretty popular thing. It was a controversial thing. A lot of people felt like it was a waste of time and money, but it was all funded privately, so they didn't gain much traction there. But when he left town, he left us with several miles of this stuff, and we took it and unrolled it out in Swope Park at the Starlight Theater parking lot, and invited anybody that wanted to come out and get as much as you wanted to come out, and a lot of people did, but we were still left with quite a bit of stuff. So anyway, when I was making this, I was trying to come up with something for the flag on the cup pole, and I decided to use the Christo cloth. So if anybody wants to do something like that, I've got a little bit of scrap left. If you would be welcome to it, just take it over here. Any questions at all? Or thank you.
These are just a couple of simple little fidget spinners that you can hold in your hand and not get all over the sidewalk if you're at the Irish Fest. So I thought they were just something for the bargain basement table.
I made 3 of them. 2 of them I can get to work. 1 I can't. And it just kept on fighting me, such as I was making the sand traps. Do not have a Dremel tool in your hand and sneeze. You make really big divots. And that's all I'm saying about that.
I didn't get to make a toy, but my daughter-in-law decided it was a good idea to buy something more expensive than she needed to buy at Williams-Sonoma. If you're familiar with there, it's called the Overpriced Store. You ever been there? Or your wife has, I know. So she bought a salt container. And when I looked at it, I said, you know, that's about $3 worth of wood and 2 magnets. And why don't I make one of those for you? So an hour later, I made this. Swivels, the magnets hold it together so you can put salt, or we were just talking about putting your mother's or your mother-in-law's hearing aids in it so she knows where they are, or your jewelry rings, or your whatever you want. Your stash of, I'll leave you open for that, depending on what size you want to make these. But this is an easy item. It took me an hour, including the finishing. So it'd be a great seller, I think, at the Irish Festival, because you can tailor it any way you want. And there's plenty of, I just went in the back, there's plenty of wood back there and squares that are long that can be cut down to make this little bowl with a lid.
Par 3, par 4, par 5.
An incredible hollowing tool, okay? This is a Kevin Neely original that has been drop tested here, but yeah, this is awesome. So we are going to get ready, and Chuck is going to find someone to draw out the winner. And Ken, if you could read the last 4 digits. I got to get my ticket out. Last 3 digits. Pick out the one that says 756.
9752.
Oh, Linda. Boy, you are just cleaning up on challenge tools, aren't you?
You know, I have a handle that I made, but no tool for it.
There you go. No, really, that is incredible. And the sharpener, but yeah,
Okay.
for I don't know how many of those you made them until you were sick of making them, didn't you, Kevin? I mean, a whole bunch of us have them, but those are incredible tools. But yeah, so Linda's all excited because she said she already has a handle made, and now she's got a tool to put in. Great. Okay. Moving on to the show and tell. We have got some very interesting show and tell items, and it looks like Phil is going to go first.
Well, I took up wood turning again after absence about 3 years
Oh,
ago.
great. Oh, yeah.
I went to the Urban Lumber Company and bought some green wood, and I had a couple of them turn out, but this one I turned green and let it sit around, and I dutifully waited after a month or two. And then after about 6 months, I don't know whether you can see it, it kind of looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And it's actually kind of a study in what not to do. If you look at the way the grain pattern goes, you would think that it would do this. So you need to, as you turn it green, the grain pattern either needs to go this way or this way, but not diagonally. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and doesn't hurt to show a few fails. These are what were going to be my donation for the challenge, but my wife showed them to the grandkids in San Jose on FaceTime, so we know where these are going. But what they are some, I like the way I make my tops. I use the standard blanks, use the Sorby texturing tool, and I really like them, but I got kind of tired of doing them the same way. I was looking for something else to do. And I was making blanks. I had the dowels rubber banded together and cutting them off in lengths. And I got done, and there was 7 rubber banded together. And I looked at it, I said, that might make a top. And this is one of the way the blank would look. Maybe a little neater. I've got glue all over this, but it will work. And so on some of them, I glued them with a tight bond and then tried to force some milliput down into the crack. Others I used, this one I put the milliput in as the glue and squeezed it together and then wrapped a rubber band around it. And this one I epoxied it together and then painted the outside with the epoxy to give it kind of a contrast. And then I turned them and colored them and put some sprinkles and sparkles on them. But it was kind of fun.
Well, of course, Rick kind of got me started on the Imitation Basket-Weave, and I did the tumbling blocks pattern there last year and a couple of cutting boards that one I donated to the church, and it brought a nice sum, and one I gave to my wife, and she liked it so well, I thought, well, I'm going to downsize it and put it into a plate. And my anniversary's next month, so guess what she's getting?
Okay. This is, I'm not sure where I got the piece, but it's Bird's Eye Redwood, Burl. It's the only one I've ever seen. I don't know where it came from, but I turned it off center to maximize what was available there of the piece, but it's got the great set of eyes in it situation, so.
Okay, this is it's mesquite. I really like the way this came out. This was one of the first ones that I've done like this, and I like the wormholes that it came with it. Sort of made it interesting. Actually, much easier to turn than I thought it was going to be. So that was kind of nice. But the really good thing is that I don't know who donated it, but this I got as a silent auction item here in June. Thank you. This is one of my favorite pieces. I really enjoy this. So it's you can make some really cool stuff out of the back table there. Thanks.
Well, I use a lot of epoxy, and I color the epoxy, and whatever's left over, I pour them in an old prescription bottle. And these four, I want to donate to the club. We put them back there, and you can turn what you want with them. Turned a pin with it. I turned an ornament with it. So you never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be in layers or whatever. So have fun with it.
An ice cream scoop. The wood is called Cadillac, so it's Mexican ebony, and you can get this kit for the scoop at Metro Hardwoods. And I've finished it with oil-based urethane, but there's something going wrong because there's a few spots where it almost looks like it's not sticking. So if you know a lot about oil-based urethane and think you know what I've done wrong, let me know.
Here's some, my name is David Roth. Here's some pins I've been making. What I've been doing is casting my own resin blanks. So mainly I use a Lumelite. So what you do is you take a dye powder and Perlex, do about 500 grams. You make 6 blanks at a time. So 6 red, 6 green, and that's what this pin is here, the cigar pin. There you go. This one here, I guess they call these hybrids. Woodcraft has some Mali Burl up there. Real hard wood. So usually when they make hybrids, they stabilize the wood before they cast resin. But this wood is so hard you don't need to stabilize it, which works out well. So far I've made 3 of these, and they've all worked, so I'm 3 for 3. Last one is, have anyone heard of P-Town Stubby? P-Town Stubby? P-Town Stubby is a place where you can buy molds for pin casting and pin making. Well, they have a mold for this. And what you do is you make a skeleton like this. After you make the skeleton, you put your colors in. And after you put your colors in, you turn a pin like this. So it's just another way of casting different types of resins. So if you have any questions, come see me after the meeting.
Started making some stuff for the holidays and doing some of these potpourri boxes. And this is a piece of black oak. And I just liked it when it came out because this piece here at one time had a branch that went out this way. And it didn't instantaneously destruct. So that one ended up this. This is a piece of walnut that was shaped like a football. I still got more of it, and it was this tall. I've got no idea what it was originally designed to do, but a friend found it for me, and it's turning out to be really colorful. This is a box for the Irish Fest. It is like a thing of trying to save something and just keep on going. I went to hollow it, went too far, ended up having to use one of the Irish CNC machine cookies in order to save the bottom. And then just to make it so nobody could tell what it is, I put rock inside of it and makes it look like it's been flocked. When I started to do the outside and the beads, I went a little bit too deep and started to almost cut it in many twos. And so then I reinforced it again. The top ended up warping in 9 different directions. But I liked how in the world that the nurdling factor came in and worked everything. And so I put some of that gold gilding paste onto it to kind of do that. But it all ended up being tight and everything else. So, oh well. Why not? That one is not. That's the one that just keeps on living, no matter what. Is it okay? Yeah, it's still okay.
I think about 3 years ago when I was just starting wood turning, one of the demos was thread chasing. And I always kept it in the back of my mind as something I wanted to do. So Anthony saw me struggling with it and brought in some wood for me to try doing some thread chasing on. And there it is now. I kind of tapered the top here. I was more practicing how do you do the thread chasing. So I turned this out of some holly. It's a nice contrast to the two. And somebody suggested it's a pill crusher for those people that can't swallow whole pills. So I haven't figured out what the destiny of this is. Hopefully I will start bringing in a few other things. No challenge to Anthony, of course.
All right, so I've got a number of grandkids, and I'm always trying to make toys. So I've come up with this, and this is actually copied off something that I bought at the dollar store that, of course, fell apart the first time they used it. When you take these and you go to the dollar store, you buy yourself a noodle for $1. This goes in the noodle. This isn't real hard to make, but it's practical. And then you hand them to all the grandkids, of which I have 8, and you just let them beat each other up. And let me tell you, they love them.
This is a piece of elm that actually I turned it about 3 years ago probably, and it sat up on a shelf for a long time needing to be thinned down, and finally got around to it this weekend, and it ended up making an interesting looking bowl.
The first little item we have here is a sideless bowl, and I thought that would be good for the Irish Fest because you could reach in from the side, you know, and get the goodies. But anyway, I didn't quite get the game side of it, so this is for the for the Irish Fest. So put that in a pile. Anyway, this project has been on my list for about ever since I thought about wood turning. And across the street from our house, there was about a 75-foot oak tree. And it's like 4 feet at the base, and so it got struck by lightning about 2 years ago, and it just withered away. And you know, finally, this owners changed, and they decided to take the tree down. Well, there was more wood on that lot than I've seen anywhere, and so one of the pieces was a piece about this long and about that big around, you know, a good 2 foot. And I said, you know, that'd make a good hat. And it's because it's had weathered, it's kind of spalted, so I decided I'd try that, and then I turned this between centers. I bought one of those little, how would you call it? A flat bit with a little tip that sticks out that you put in your chuck and for the drive, and then just a live center on the other side. So that let me turn, you know, away most of the wood, and then the inside of it was sort of a whole nother challenge, you know, to get the inside out. But long story short, when I got it down, I hadn't caught any catches. And I've got it mic'd out to about 175 thousandths in thickness, not quite 1/8 of an inch. And I said, close enough. And so then the trick to get the top turned loose, I've got a vacuum chuck on my lathe. And for those that don't have one, I'd say put pennies in a jar, because they are absolutely wonderful addition to your lathe if you don't know. So anyway, the 5-inch bowl sets on a headstock, and it's got a double thick, probably 1/4 inch thick neoprene, what do they call them, closed cell rubber on the face of it. And boy, they just pop up. And if you look at the gauge and you've got 18 inches or 20 inches of vacuum, you just turn like it was locked into your iron chuck. So then that let me just, you know, finish the top, and it came out, and this was a Saturday start and today finish. And I did take Sunday off, or part of Sunday off to do this. So, no, well, it would if it were elongated this way a little bit. It's on average 7 1/4, but it's not in the right places. Anyway, it was a lot of fun doing it, and I might do it. But I can tell you, I have just short of 20 gallons of shavings. And no catches.
This is that same piece of wood I've been working on for a while. Actually, I got 3 burls, and this is another version. And it took me a little while to understand what I was, why the wood looks like this. And I think I said last time I'd seen it once in a picture. I'd never seen it in person. And I think what's happened is that's the rotting process beginning, because there's lots of clear wood in parts of it, and whatever this other is, and so I kind of decided that that's the rotting process. I have 3 like this set, and what I did was I left these untouched, all of these flaws in the wood. I didn't do anything to them. The set I'm sanding now, I filled it with super glue, or put lots of super glue in it, so that a little heavier, and it makes them feel a little more solid. And while they don't all come up, see, I didn't try to fill them completely, right? I just strengthened it. And it makes them look a little different. I'm in the process of sanding that set. And so the third set, I don't know, I may use epoxy or something and fill them completely so that it looks like a smooth piece of wood. And it's the first time I've really tried to core anything like this. And, I don't know, it works. So, thank you.
This is a sycamore bowl that the reason I brought it in was the end here where the pith was just like sponge as far as being starting to rot out, and I didn't want to lose that much depth of the bowl in order to get past the point where it wouldn't be chipping out. Anthony did his best to show me how to cut it so that it would, you know, I could get a smooth cut across it, but I was peeling it out every time I cut. So it's really just to show you that a little dark sawdust and some CA glue, you can kind of stabilize it yourself, and you know, a lot of sanding, but it really kind of makes a pretty dramatic effect on the color differences. I would say versus trying to match the color with, you know, whatever you're trying to fill that void with, contrasted, to me, it really pops it and actually makes it more of a feature than anything. So that's it.
Okay, any more show and tell items? All right. All right. Okay, what is the challenge for next month? Chip, what is it? Tell us. A spirally thing. Okay. There you go. Everyone has their assignment now for next month, a spirally thing. And that'll do it. Thank you, Chip, though. That was most enlightening, and everyone's going to be going to get their cheese graters out. But yeah, that's it. Any last minute announcements or anything I need to make? Okay, we're done.